Did I
Yeah.
enter all my contests? I'm on a 14-day since my birthday. I have not done well. I'm in the biggest slump of the year so far, but we're live, Jake. We're
Really?
live. But yeah, I killed that $2,500 in that Kentucky Derby contest that I was in. Got third, and the first place was 5 grand and a trip for two to the Derby, and it was like a swanky trip. Second was 5 grand, third was 2,500, and the first two guys couldn't do the trip, so they asked me. But they asked me at 4:30 on the afternoon. I had just started a new job. I was in my second week, and I would have had to leave Thursday morning. I'm like, I can't do that. So no
Yeah,
Kentucky
man.
Derby for me, and that's a bucket list thing. And I told my wife, and she's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to go to that." And I was like, "Well, don't look at this because it was like the blah 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 breakfast and the such and such this, and it was like, hey, what would we have had to wear? Would we have to wear jackets and dresses to this thing?" So, but anyway, here we are. All right, we'll let the people start to trickle in just a little bit here, and we'll get the link tweeted out because I think we're surprising a few people that we sort of went on time today, Jake, by happenstance.
Yeah, that's nice.
It works out. So let me get this going here. But how did you do last night? Did you believe in Max Scherzer and Jake DeGrom like the rest of us?
I did. So it didn't go too hot for me, um, but that's all right. I mean, I'll live and die with guys like Scherzer and Degrom, and there's going to be nights like that. So I got crushed pretty good. I think I had 60% Degrom, 50% Scherzer, something like that on DK, and really across the sites. I had a ton of Scherzer on FanDuel, but yeah, it's fine. I new slate today, a dual slate, so we got two more shots at it to kind of regroup here.
Absolutely. And for those of you, we're going to ease into this here, but we have there's a 1 o'clock game and a 2 o'clock game that are basically their own little turbo slate or single game slates, depending on how the sites are handling it. There's very nice 4 o'clock slate, and then tonight the lock is at 7:15. It's the Saturday Fox baseball. So everything's at 7:15. So that will be fun this evening. There's lots of contests everywhere. Yahoo. I used all the picks for my article, Jake, and I missed cashing by 1.5 in the big contest, and I cashed in the single entry. I'm like, really? A point and a half? Come
Yeah,
on, Degrom. You could now if he was 49% owned, but if he would have had like 7 points, that should have caught me up into the cash line because half the people had him, but I should have passed a few other people that
sure.
didn't have him, etc. So it wasn't exactly 1.5, but dude, damn it. But my streak ends at 1. What was your biggest takeaway from last night?
From last night, so I haven't dug into lineup study. I actually want to see. This is something I always like to look at, and if you have it, well, I guess we don't have screen share going on right now, but um, I could still maybe talk about just how the pros did. I always like to look at this. I know because I always feel better about having a bad night if I don't see a ton of pros at the top. Um, so looking at the contest for last night, like just going into the medium eights. Actually, no, that's basically all pros. Let's go into like the $10 extra innings. Um, yeah, there's not a lot of pros at the top that I'm seeing. Like, so there's not the Osmo, there's not Triple A. I see 1-800 Eddie. I mean, he's just a stud. So
He
there.
flies under the radar so much. He
Oh, he's
doesn't
so
even
good.
brag in chat. Even
Yeah,
in our internal chat.
you never hear a word from him. And he's just all of a sudden at once a month he'll take down 50K. And it's like, geez, man, like you're not even like one of he's not even technically like one of the top players at the site. But he's so good. Man. And he doesn't even max enter. Like I'm seeing he played 125 lineups, which is weird. He was doing kind of the same thing in NHL and just smashing for the first couple months. And then yeah, I don't know. So Eddie, that's another player you guys should be studying. He should be considered a pro player. I don't know technically what people consider as pros, but yeah, he's an absolutely stud GPP player.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting. All right, I see him fucking up, and there we go. All right, I think I got you framed appropriately. I'm good. Got my my screen's up that I want to look at. So let's go on in here. Reminder, this is the Osmo DFS strategy show. We will be going game by game through the entire slate. You will get a show again this evening at 6 o'clock. Well, let's say, yeah, we'll go at 6 o'clock. It'll be me and you again, but that'll be focusing on the night slate, which we will, of course, have the starting lineups for that game. So we have a couple trickling in right now, and this is a little bit different of a Saturday, as I mentioned at the top, where there's a lot of 4 o'clock games. So some of those should come in throughout the show, but we'll probably be missing 2/3 of them. But throughout the day, we're going to have content, as we always do here on Osmo. You can get the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. That's with the afternoon main slate and the night slate. That is written by yours truly. That is a free article. You can also, in the second paragraph, it'll tell you how to get your Yahoo initial deposit bonus. Shout out to Yahoo, who is a presenting sponsor here of most of the Osmo content. So that is always fun having them in the fold with us. Very unique site. Scoring is more for individual batters, whereas FanDuel is kind of based on stacking because they've kind of upped the runs on the RBI. DraftKings leans a little bit more towards home runs, and with the 2 pitchers, that makes it a little bit different. But on Yahoo, it's kind of its own unique one where they don't accentuate the stacks. If you use singles as your baseline across the 3 sites to compare them, but they do allow 6-man stacks. Now the tricky part is no utility spot, no multi-position eligibility, and their pricing can be a little bit not wonky, but just different if you're trying to lift and shift your player pool from the other sites there. Not going to happen most of the time. So you could find some really good values. There are guys that you want to play that are overpriced based on what you're used to seeing, which makes it a nice place to play. And only 10 entry max for any of their contests, no matter how big the contest, just a 10 entry max. So that is something that they want to be more player friendly. And their management fees, 12.5%. Occasionally they'll do some promotions where they run them without management fees, their signature contest. We haven't seen one of those, but I suspect we'll get a couple before the All-Star break. So shout out to them. If you have not checked them out, please do so. Go into that article. I'll drop the link here. And again, the second paragraph has the link and instructions on how you can sign up and get a deposit bonus using the promo code Osmo. All right. First game of the day, Jake, we have Tampa Bay. This is the lone 1 o'clock game. Tampa Bay at New York. This one I did not give a long look to because I'm just dabbling a little bit with some showdown slates and the 2-game slate. Now, here's where some good pitching is residing. We've got Blake Snell going against the Yankees. Blake Snell actually favored on the road in Yankee Stadium. One, that shows how good Blake Snell is. I mean, or the Cy Young Award does. But 2, shows you how many people are missing there from the Yankees still. But we're still got projected lineups here. But Aaron Hicks is back finally from his injury. Nope, there's the confirmed lineup. So he is batting third. You've got Gary Sanchez at catcher. Gleyber Torres is back. I see that Miguel Andujar out with for the season with surgery. Adam, it's like the deal with the devil has expired.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Snell being a favorite going into Yankee Stadium. Can't really say that about a lot of pitchers these days. So it just goes to show how stellar Snell is. He's one of my favorite pitchers. So on this 2-gamer, I don't know yet if I'm going to play like the turbo. Are there decent contests on any of the sites?
Well, let's see, because I am a slave to DK these days.
And Yahoo, of course. And Yahoo.
Marginal for this 2-gamer.
Yeah.
Nothing to really get excited. They've got their all-day slate basically nada. Let me see here. They've got their showdown slate, which has some okay contests if you want to dabble, and then their turbo. Yeah, nothing really on the turbo. They're small field contests, and there's not going to be a lot of content out there for them. But the largest prize pool is just $1,500. That's their $8. But the thing to remember is that's not you're not going to be going against a ton of competition. And if you are realizing today is Saturday, then most people were probably up having some fun, maybe enjoying an adult beverage or 2 last night. They may not be up yet for this slate since the big one starts at 4. So you might find a little softer competition. Yahoo, of course, does contests literally with every slate. Their main focus today is, let's see, going to be the 7 o'clock slate, but they run from whenever their games start, they go all the way to the end of the slate. So if it starts at 1, it's all 15. At the 4 o'clock games, the next 13 games. The 8:40 is the last 4 games, etc. So if you want to jump in there, it's kind of nice because, one, not a lot of content is put out for Yahoo. 2, people keep continually forgetting that there are always contests going off basically with every start time on the hour. And 3, there's oftentimes a little room in those because the big guys aren't in there because you know it's like 3 or 4 entry max in a lot of them because they're just not that big of a contest, and they generally don't fill up. So if you're poised and ready to pop in, you can jump in there with a $5 contest or an $8 contest or single entry, and they'll go off about 80% full. If you pick your spots, that's great. The other thing that's nice about Yahoo, and then we'll get back to this game, if you have not played more than 300 games, you still qualify as a beginner, so you can play in beginner contests. Definitely use those if you can. Don't worry about chasing the big prize pool. Those are very, very soft competition. And what I did when I still had games left, Jake, I was playing the single entry $100 NBA 50-50s, and I'd sit there and wait and try to find a 10 or a 12 man that went off with 2 empty spots in it, and I'd jump in. And it was profitable. Sadly, though, I only realized this when I had about 25 games left. So I judiciously meted them out. Now I just blast away when I go play there. So, but in any event, there's a little tip and trick to stretch your bankroll dollar. But back to this one, Blake Snell, Masahiro Tanaka. Tanaka, tough matchup here going against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, shall we say. They're mostly healthy now, and they're actually a pretty decent hitting team. Not a lot of household names, but Austin Meadows at the top, Tommy Pham, great power in righty-righty matchups. Heeman Choi is outstanding. Or what's his name? Yandy Diaz, righty-righty matchup. Okay, pop, but hey, he's batting cleanup, and he's relatively expensive today. So I suspect not a lot of gamers may be going to him if you're on the early slate. So you'll want to check that out. Any particular highlights in this game that you want to call out before we move along?
I think so. I was looking at the ownership just now for the turbo slate that we have up. So we have all these niche slates like we're talking about. So even if they're small slates, good chance someone at the site is playing them, and therefore you get ownership a lot of times for that. Giolito is the highest owned pitcher, and then Tanaka, and then Snell. So for me, like I haven't seen how lineup construction works, but if I'm playing this 2-gamer, I'm probably getting to some Tampa bats. You're going to get a ton of leverage no matter who you stack on this early slate. And the guy I probably least want to stack against is Snell, even though we have some good Yankees bats. So I think I'm more on the Rays side of this for bats. They're not super cheap, but a guy I do like is Brandon Lau at 4,800. And then Kiermaier in the 7th spot. I know it's not great, but 3,800, he's one of the guys that seems a little bit too cheap. So these Rays are super expensive. If you can fit him in with Snell, that's something that I would definitely be trying to do on this short slate, because you're gonna have to stack against one of these guys. And for me, it's probably not gonna be Snell, and I actually like Giolito quite a bit.
All right. Apologies. Apparently, I've been calling you Adam. I remember our first show, I was calling you Josh because I just done shows with Josh. I look forward to doing shows with Jake, so my sincere apologies. Adam is now the person I've done the most shows with. I've done probably about 500 shows with Adam. So it's kind of the default. For a long time, it was Cards, STL Cards, Justin Van Zuden over there on RG. We did a few hundred shows together. I've done a couple hundred shows with Fast Eddie. But it's Adam in the lead now since I've been working mostly with him for the last 3 years. But Jake Hari, the man that needs no introduction.
You can call me whatever you want.
We'll see. No guarantees I don't fall back into some poor habits there. Moving on to our next game, we've got the lone 2 o'clock game. We have the Toronto Blue Jays going into Chicago. They will be facing left-hander Lucas Giolito. Right-hander Lucas Giolito. And then left-hander Fierbrand. Good God, I don't even know how to pronounce that name. What do you know about this guy, Jake?
I don't. Last night when I was looking at this, like basically the slate, I didn't even recognize the name. He does not have a salary on DK, so I don't even think you can play him. And I'm just going to double check
Yeah,
that.
he's not even listed on the starting lineups page for MLB.com, which is usually what I go to as kind of the go-to source. Yeah, they're a little slow at updating sometimes, but this game's going in 3 hours, and they don't have a listed pitcher here. So perhaps they're waiting for a transaction to officially go through and call up this youngster here, but I don't know much about him. But we want to see let's see, Fear Bend Baseball Fangraphs.
So he's not even in the player pool.
I'm more curious about taking hitters against him.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be a bullpen game, right, for Toronto?
Let's see. Oh, how did I not know? So this guy has been literally a AAA pitcher forever. What does he got for major? So he pitched in 2008. He got 39 innings with the Mariners. 2007, 49. 2006, 17. And then he had not pitched in the majors again until 2014. So he went 5 seasons between being in the majors. He bounced around between the Mariners, the Phillies, the Reds, and the Rangers, ultimately coming up with the Rangers for 7 innings at the end of the season in 2014. And then this will be his first appearance in, well, 4 seasons. But he's been at AAA for the Jays. He's got 16 innings pitched. He's been starting in all of them. Okay stuff. 1.6 home run per 9, 7 strikeouts per 9. But the thing you want to remember is he is 33, almost 34. So I think we're going to like the hitters in this one. But wait. There are not a lot of great hitters. So Jose Abreu sticks out. Let's see. Tim Anderson. We like him against the lefties.
Tim Anderson.
How much is he?
$5,500.
Oh my. Well, I mean, I guess when you're player of the month, you got to get a price bump there.
I guess so.
Wow. 3,800 on FanDuel. Yikes. Tough price to pay, but we like them. James McCann is always good against lefties. He has been throughout his career. He is batting cleanup. He is catcher eligible, but he is 4,600 on DraftKings. Again, this is mostly on their 2-game slate. 18 on Yahoo. So not a lot of cheapies here. Jake, what do you want to do with anybody else in this game on either side?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get some White Sox bats here against this career AAA-er. The issue is, I think another 7-hole hitter, Rendon, for 3,500 is a guy that sticks out a little bit. Man, it's not pretty trying to stack up these White Sox. So on this 2-gamer, it'd probably be a lot of Rays. And then even if I'm playing Giolito, like I'd probably be okay on a 2-game slate playing a bat or 2 against him, just because, or, you could just fade him. He's almost 80%. Like you can make a case for basically fading any of these 3 pitchers because there's really only 3 to choose from. So I don't know. I mean, I like the White Sox. I would like to fit a bunch of them in if I could. On the other side, it would probably be Roddy Tellez at 3,700 for me, and then Vlad Guerrero at 4K. So there's so many different ways to go on this 2-gamer. You're going to get a ton of leverage no matter what you do.
Yeah, and that's often how you want to play it on these short ones, particularly on the 2 pitcher sites. And as Jake said, we only have 3 to choose from unless you want to roll the dice on a middle reliever of sorts. All right, let's go on to the first of our 4 o'clock games. We have 6 4 o'clock games, and then we have 7 7 o'clock games. The first one here, this is going to be the one that we need to do a lot of focus on, Jake, because last night they had not even announced a pitcher when I started doing the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. They had not announced a pitcher for Texas, and there was already a 5.6 implied run total for St. Louis with no pitcher announced. That has climbed to 6.4 because it's Ariel Jurado who will be pitching today. Now, the intriguing thing about Jurado is he does not really have a fastball. He does not really strike anybody out. He lives on his slider, which induces ground balls. So over his last 300 batters faced at the major league level, he has a 53% ground ball rate, just a 25% fly ball rate, but a 10% strikeout rate. Literally everything goes in play. So he's going against the lineup here of just absolute veteran hitters from Carpenter, Goldie, DeJong, Ozuna, Martinez, Yachty. You want these guys up and down your lineups. The Redbirds do get a DH because this one's in Arlington, so we have American League rules here. That means we should see Harrison Bader, who is someone I really like, who has immense power. He is 2,300 on FanDuel. He is 3,500 on DK, and he is $10 on Yahoo. And I see my pal Seth Hater is in chat, and he would want me to tell you, Jake, that those home runs from the 9-hole, they count just as much as they do from the top of the order.
That's right here. So yeah, I mean, it's just basically it's bats all over the place in this entire game. I mean, Jurado, he's got nothing as far as I'm concerned. And then these Cardinals prices, they're just too low on DraftKings for the slate. So hard to imagine a scenario where I don't get to just a ton of Cardinals. I mean, ownership is going to be important. I think they're probably the chalkiest team on this early slate, 6.4 implied total. There's not a ton of pitching to pay up for that I'm seeing. I mean, maybe you could argue Nola, but he's only 9,400. Boyd, 10-2. So you're going to be able to fit these Cardinals. They're going to be chalky. Carpenter at 3,900 is outrageous. There's going to be a ton of balls in play against Jurado, and then same thing against Hudson, I think. So these are probably your top two stacks just from a raw point perspective on the early slate. Maybe LA, you could argue, or Philadelphia sneaks up there. But for me, as good of a hitting environment as you can ask for, and two pitchers that aren't going to miss a lot of bats.
Yes. Now, Chad is rightfully pointing out that there is some potential weather here in Texas. So for that, I have kind of a double counter. One, it looks like it's going to be clear after 8 o'clock. So they should be okay if they just wait a little bit if there's any weather in the area. The Texas storms generally are, they're deluges in the summer, but they're relatively fast moving as well. But this one is between two teams that do not face each other again because it's an AL team and an NL team. They could always punt and go with a doubleheader tomorrow, though. So that is the one thing that we do want to keep in the back of our mind. But right now, it looks like there's going to be rain in the area, but it should be clearing later in the evening. So we've seen this a couple times. Heck, I believe it was the Cardinals in Pittsburgh. I lose track of things. I think that was last weekend where they, or last week where they started like 2.5 hours after the first pitch, and then they just played it clean. So keep an eye on that. But this is going to have literally all eyes on this game because on the other side, you got Dakota Hudson. Now, Dakota Hudson, friend to lefties, friend to righties, friend to DFS players all around. He has, let's see, over his last 300 batters faced, a 4.9 xFIP, 16% strikeout rate, 12% walk rate. That's not good, Jake. It means there's going to be some base runners on, and then he does allow a 36% hard hit rate, just a 16% soft hit rate. It's a mess. His his walk rate against lefties. Do you want to guess? Are you looking? Do you want to guess?
Against for Hudson?
Yes. His combined is 12.
Oh, okay. I was going to say 12. Versus lefties, what, like 15?
17%.
Yikes.
Nearly 1 out of 5 lefties. At that point, do you? I mean, as tempting as it is, because you won't hit him for power, do you take the bat off your shoulder? Do you go all Bartolo Colon on him if you're a lefty?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I doubt these guys are going to be swinging. So I should say these guys are going to be swinging a ton. And if they stack it up, lefty, 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 Chu, Calhoun, Mazara, Gallo, and then as Drupal Cabrera, who's a switch hitter, will be batting left-handed. So I hope this game plays because I have a ton of interest in Texas. Assuming they roll out a quality lineup, it'll just be telling when the rankings and the projections come out how concerned we actually are with the weather here.
Yeah, and another question there in chat: would they wait 3 or 4 hours? Yeah, they will. Now, this is a good question. Again, these teams aren't going to play again outside of tomorrow against each other, but generally these. And I'm just looking this up because I want to see where they're traveling to. But both teams, or well, at least St. Louis will be on the road. So St. Louis has Monday off. And Texas hosts Seattle. St. Louis plays, let's see, they play on Tuesday at home. So there is a chance if they want to go with the doubleheader tomorrow, if it's going to play totally clean, they would do it. Oftentimes, if they can wait, still get the game in, the fans have already showed up, they gussied up the whole stadium, etc., and they want to get the game in. It's just kind of how it goes, especially when it's a travel day for one of the teams the next day, because in general they don't like those long days per se. Now, if it's a necessary evil, then they will do it. But fair question there. Fair question. And they'll wait that long if they know there's a clearing. If they know there's a clearing. That's another key thing. And it does look that way. Again, we're 6 hours, 5 hours away from first pitch. Again, the Texas Storms move around. They could be in the area. They could be over the stadium. We'll want to check that out. But all valid considerations there. Anything else from this game that does have the amazing, 12 run total?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Nothing. I think just look at the total, see the two pitchers, and if this game looks like it's playing even 75% of the time, I'm probably going to have a ton of bats.
All right. Let's see. And then another good question here from Mike Bucket saying, not sure a doubleheader would happen because a 3:05 Eastern time start. If necessary, because again, these two teams are not going to play against each other, they would move one of the start times. So they could play, a 1 o'clock and then move the other one to 4:30, or whenever the first one finishes. So just excellent ideas and thoughts we want to keep in our mind with how baseball can handle these things. Basically, they make it up as they go along, Jake. But
yep, that's what happens. You got 162 to get through.
It is. It's like the Mariners in Boston, where we all thought it was going to mostly be a rainout, except for the fact that those two teams don't play each other. They're about as far apart as you can get outside of the Mariners and the Florida teams, and they would have to find a common off day with which they would need to make up that game. And since Boston is almost always involved in the playoffs, they usually don't skip a game. Somebody pointed out in chat to me, and I forget. So this was probably 4 years ago, maybe 5. They had one of these common off day games, and it was Chicago and another. I want to say it might have been Houston. They actually played in Milwaukee for their makeup game, and people were just beside themselves because Chicago's not that far away from Milwaukee. So they said, hey, wait a second. We had the game rained out at our home. We're playing at a neutral site, but how neutral is it if it's Chicago? So just throwing that out there. A lot of fun, a lot of oddities with baseball. Continuing on here with the rest of our slate, the next 4:05 game is the Colorado Rockies at the Philadelphia Phillies. We have Antonio Senzatella taking the mound there for the Rockies. On the other side, we have Aaron Nola. Now, Nola is going to have some considerations for us here, Jake, because one, the Rockies not as good on the road, which should not be a surprise for anybody. But when we look at the adjusted metric, the advanced metric, weighted runs created plus, for the last couple of years, they've really been a bottom 3 team. And what that does is it neutralizes the ballpark factors and creates a league-wide benchmark of 100. And that 100 is what the average team is doing in the same conditions, same situations as the Rockies would be. And generally, the Rockies have been 20 to 30% worse than the average team when they're on the road. Yikes.
Yep. So Nola, I mean, you don't have any issues with Nola or any worries with Nola long term, I would assume, right?
No.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything either. I know, I can't remember, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, someone at our site, I can't remember who it was, probably Adam Orloff, was talking about maybe some concerns with him. I don't understand why he's not getting many swings and misses. And he has had some tough matchups. I mean, Atlanta, Washington again. He faced, but he's also faced Miami, Detroit, Colorado. That was in Coors, like the Mets, and then now Milwaukee and St. Louis' last 2. So maybe a tough schedule to start for Nola, but an 8.2% swinging strike rate and a below average chase rate so far is a little bit worrisome. I don't understand why he wouldn't be the same sort of pitcher and get a ton of swings and misses. So for me here, I'm probably going to end up with a lot of Nola. As you mentioned, the Rockies outside of Coors are just not a very good team. You get to face Arenado and Story, righty, which is what you would prefer to do. Those guys absolutely destroy lefties, and they're good against righties, but not nearly as good. And then like Tapia, Rogers, Iannetta, pitcher spot. Like, this should be a solid start for Nola, and he's only 9,400 because of the lack of results early in the season. So I'll probably eat the chalk with Aaron Nola here.
Yeah, it would kind of be the route I want to go. Now, Philly going against Senzatella, they are in the mix as a counter move against the Cardinals and Texas teams. They're carrying a 5.5 implied run total here. Of course, everything's going to start with Harper and Hoskins, but as we branch out, Gene Segura, JT Realmuto, McCutchen, Cesar Hernandez, Odubel Herrera, those guys are all solid plays. Oh yeah, and then Mikael Franco, who is relaxing at the bottom of the order and just finally realizing and hitting for some serious power this season. Prices are up there now, comparable to Texas and the Cardinals on DK. So it feels like these guys could be a nice little replacement if you want to gain a little bit of leverage or do something different. What do you think where is Philly going to rank with regards to your portfolio of 150 lineups?
I think I'm going to get to them quite a bit, especially depending on what happens with this Texas game. So they would be, if this Texas game looks like it's going to get rained out, and we actually just got projections updated, so I want to see what their chance of postponement is right now. It is at 0 right now, so I don't know if Alex just hasn't updated that or what, but right now it's at 0. So Philly's probably in that next tier for me. I don't have an issue with the prices. Like I mentioned, there's not a ton of pitching to pay up for. Even the top tier guys, the highest price guy on DK on this slate is 10-2 Matt Boyd. So you're not breaking the bank for any pitchers. And it's also a good correlation play with Nola if you don't believe in Senzatella, which I certainly do not. 80 degrees, maybe a little bit of wind blowing out. Maybe this is a spot where Harper and the Phillies can kind of break out of the slump.
All right, let's move along here. We're on to the 4-10 games. You mentioned Matt Boyd, 10,200. Boy, he sucked in his last start, Jake. Of course he was, going against the Houston Astros, who are phenomenal against lefties, even if they are missing Jose Altuve. Not the easiest matchup going against Oakland. They actually have been striking out less than I. In my mind, I have them at a certain level for strikeouts over the last couple seasons, but this particular iteration of them has been striking out less than what I had thought. So let's call out a few of the guys. Obviously, Chris with the K Davis still strikes out a quarter of the time. Pinder and Olsen strike out a fair amount, but then you got guys that are like Jerks and Profar. God, he never seems to get hits, but he puts the ball in play. He strikes out 14% of the time. Marcus Semien is at 18%. Piscotty, Conha, Fagley, those guys are all right around 20, just either a tick above or a tick below here against lefties. So perhaps not the inherent strikeouts available for Boyd that we would like to see, especially paying 10,200. But if that's everybody's sort of baseline thought, that kind of makes him a little intriguing because, as we've thrown out there, not a ton of ace pitchers on this 4 o'clock slate.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with Boyd. I mean, one bad start, not going to ruin it for me. He's had a really, really good season to this point. So one bad start against Houston, no less. I'm just not going to worry about that. You're not going to miss a lot of bats against Houston. So just kind of wiping that one off of his resume. And the thing I am concerned here is just the total against him, almost 5 runs. So I'm hoping that's more of an indictment of the Tigers. Yeah, rather than Boyd himself. I think he can get swings and misses here. Look at where the A's are at for the season. Let me click on their active roster, actually. Wait, do I have the right thing up? I think I do. Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to call this out. Sorry to interrupt, but they have an 18% strikeout rate against lefties, 29th in the league. 29th.
18? Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, okay. So, they're striking out a ton of righties. I had the full season up. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that is a lot lower than I would expect, but yeah, maybe that's why you're seeing the 4.9 implied total. So I think Boyd is probably a little overpriced. His ownership is also, I think, reflecting that. 15% on a shorter slate. So I'm fine with the Boyd I get. I'm probably not going to go overweight on him. He's not going to be a guy X out. And then I would imagine these Oakland bats are going to be popular just because they're so cheap and they have a high implied total.
All right. Now, we do on the other side have Daniel Mangden and his amazing mustache going against the Detroit offense. Now, outside of their top three, Goodrum, Stewart, and Castellanos, I am not afraid of the Detroit lineup. You have, what do you think Miguel Cabrera's isolated power is over his last 250 at-bats?
Ooh, it's probably pretty low, like 100.
0.09. So yes, you are 10% off. You gave him too much credit with 100.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So yeah, it's like having a bunch of Adam Eatons on your team. So not much power there, and he's the cleanup hitter. Rodriguez has had some moments here and there. Ronnie Rodriguez, he does have a little bit of pop. 3,300 on FanDuel as a shortstop, 4,500 on DK. That's a little too expensive, and I don't even want to say a little. That's way too expensive. I think, as the kids say, Jake, that's hella expensive, right?
Yeah, that is what the kids say.
All right, but 3,800 for Castellanos, quite intriguing on DK. Stewart coming in here at 3,600, and then Nico Goodrum coming in at 3,200. Those prices I like. That looks like a reasonable complementary stack where we can work those guys in with some Rangers or with some Cardinals, and then maybe get one of these more expensive pitchers, perhaps an Aaron Nola. What do you like or not like about Mangden? Now, I ask this because Laffy and Adam have been diving into his numbers pretty much for the last couple seasons, and they both think he should be doing better than he actually does. But I wanted to get your take on that, since I know you also look at a lot of those advanced metrics like they do.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he should be better as well. But like, you look at what he's done at the major league level, it's just like very pedestrian at best. I know he's had like one or two big starts, like complete game shutouts that come out of nowhere. So like, you're seeing that sort of potential, and that's why guys like Adam and Laffy, who are really smart, they say that he should be better. I feel the same way, and 7,700 here going up against Detroit isn't a terrible price, but he's also getting ownership. He's almost 20% right now on the early slate on DK. So I thought I might get to a little bit of him, just because a righty going up against Detroit has generally been a profitable strategy so far this season. You look at Detroit's strikeout numbers versus righties as a team, they are right up there. 26.6% for the season, 77 WRC plus, 150 ISO. So just not really striking fear into your heart here. I don't mind Mangden, but if he's going to be 20%, like, I probably would be looking more to some of these Detroit bats, specifically Goodrum and Stewart right off the top.
All right. Let's see here. Going against Boyd, we like Pinder against lefties. Got a home run last night. We know that K. Risp Davis is always good. He probably will bat 247 for the fifth year in a row, but still going to get some power. And then Chapman also in a good spot when he has the platoon advantage. That can be your leverage against Boyd. Moving on to our next game here, Jake, we have the Los Angeles Dodgers in there against the Reds, and seemingly as expected, damn near every lefty got a home run last night for the Dodgers. 3 at the expense of Disco Stu Desclafani. I don't really like Tyler Mahle against these guys either. Now, Mahle is someone that is we can get some moments where we want to go with him. This is not the matchup where that is going to occur. He has his own struggles against lefties, not quite as pronounced as Desclafani, but over his last 300 lefties faced, he is allowing a 400, yes, that is right, 416 weighted on base percentage, and then a 270 isolated power. Wow. So the lefties, who do you want? Who don't you want?
Yeah, that might be the better question. Who don't you want? So recency bias and all this stuff is going to just recent success for the Dodgers last night is going to make them popular. It's also a spot where they have a 5.6 implied total, and it's, approaching 90 degrees in Cincinnati here, and a guy that's got issues against lefties. So if you're seeing the same projected lineup I am, that's starting off with 6 lefties, which is what the Dodgers should do. The Dodgers should be right up there as one of the top stacks of the entire day. Molly giving up nearly 50% hard contact to lefties. I know even going back to the start of last season, like he's well over 40. So he just gets wrecked by lefties. There's no really other way to put it. So while I hate missing the boat on the Dodgers last night, I was off of them because of the ownership on FanDuel, especially, and that buried me. So I'm probably going to be on them on DK. I would imagine it's going to be a little bit tougher to get to them with Bellinger and Peterson and Muncy all around 5K or over. So those will be the guys I'll try to get a bunch of, and I'm going to have a bunch of Dodger stacks for sure.
All right. Our buddy in chat, Legalized, as he goes by, Alex, says, no one ever posts the links here in Osmo Premium chat. How do I know when the shows are going to go live? I don't seem to get my notifications. Okay. My bad. I should have sent that out. But for those of you following along at home on YouTube, click that little subscription button, hit that notification bell, and you will get a Yahoo notification, a YouTube notification when these Yahoos go on air, including myself. I'm going to give an all channel. This one's just for you, Legalized, here in the Osmo Premium Slack, which is one of the benefits you can have here if you go behind the paywall. And then Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll be tweeting these out. But not too shabby. We're going to be going again at 6 o'clock tonight. You'll get Jake and I focusing on the main slate. Let's see. There may be a basketball show. I'll have to double check on that. But I know Fast Eddie has been giving his knowledge out there for the showdown slates here as we're down to the conference championships. We do have NASCAR this evening. It's one of their all-star races. We've got content posted for that already. And of course, you're looking at him. No, not me. Him. That would be Jake Hari, who's going to be giving us the hockey projections for this afternoon's game.
No games tonight.
There what?
There's no games tonight. The Boston-Carolina game 5 was supposed to be tonight, but Carolina got swept.
Oh, I thought there was a 3 o'clock game. Is that tomorrow?
That's tomorrow. Yep.
Oh, I'm so excited to keep playing hockey. I've already signed up and registered for that one.
Yeah, I was like, oh, nice game tomorrow. And then I saw it was the same teams that played last night. So
you're right. Yeah, I thought about it. I'm like, wait a second. Didn't I just see that? But no, selfishly, I thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to ask Jake what he thinks off air. I'll get the good stuff now that I'm on a show with you. Well, rats. Now I'm going to have to pester you in Slack tomorrow to find out some insights.
I'll be playing it for sure.
Oh, always a good time. Let's see. Getting back here to the games, the fun stuff. But back here, as we were singing the praises of the Dodgers, definitely Bellinger, Muncy, Peterson, Corey Seager, and Alex Verdugo are in play. Of course, there's always pinch hit risks there with Peterson and Verdugo, but if they can get a couple whacks against Tyler Mahle, that will be well worth it. And we saw Corey Seager hit a home run last night. Remember, he missed the majority of last year due to injury, and he's been looking a little rusty, but it's good to see him with some power again, because he is one of my favorite guys to play. I have not played so DK sends out that thing at the beginning of the baseball season every year and tells you who your top 3 most rostered batters were. 2 years ago, so when his healthy year, my top 2 were Bellinger and Seager. Prior to that, it was David Peralta. And then I forget who it was the first year those things came out, but it's always some bizarre guy. Like, you play David Peralta 20% of the time. Whoa, how can I play a guy 20% of the time? There's slates where he doesn't even play, but yeah, very much.
Mine was probably Max Muncy.
Yeah, it could be. But the funny thing is, none of those guys are guys I play very much anymore. Bellinger, rightfully priced way up where he should be. So I'm not rolling him out there with impunity, but I'd like to. But it's a little tougher to get to him. You know who it's going to be tough to get to? Walker Buehler. Not tough for me and you, Jake, but tough for the Cincinnati Reds. This is an intriguing spot for Buehler. The Reds have a 4.5 implied run total. Now, that's higher than we expect to see. I remember 2 weeks ago, the Reds seemingly barely were cracking 4 runs per game. Walker Buehler is a good pitcher. So you say, well, why is the run total so high? This one's in Cincinnati. It wasn't that high previously, and there were good pitchers or even worse pitchers than Buehler. Well, it's going to be 90 degrees today, Jake, around first pitch. It's going to be not overly humid. It's going to be right around 50%, but that is conducive to home runs. And we know that the Great American Ballpark is a nice launching pad for them. So, drum roll, please. Do you want to earmark $9,900 on DraftKings for Walker Buehler as one of your two pitchers tonight?
I don't think I'm going to be getting there very often. As you mentioned, Hitters Park, hitting weather. Buehler is not a guy that misses a ton of bats. I mean, 10% swinging strike rate, that's right around average. I mean, and you're paying $10K for a guy that has a 4.5 implied total against him and some worrisome hitters, specifically the 2 and 3, Votto and Suarez. Puig can hit righties very, very well, arguably better than lefties. And then Winker is not a guy that I think is bad at all. So I'm actually probably looking for more reds against him, especially if Buehler's going to come in at like 30%. Because I think like Buehler and Boyd and, Nola, you can argue that I have Nola way ahead of those other two guys. So I'm probably just going to take a pretty big stand on him and then pivot elsewhere off of Buehler. I don't see 30% ownership here in the spot for him. So I'm hoping that sticks because I'm not very interested in it.
Yeah, that is kind of where I came down on that one as well. One of our guys in the premium Slack the other day was saying that Puig not very good against or not as good against lefties as he is righties. Now I always knew he was good against same-handed pitching, but I went back and looked. He's markedly better against righties and feels more like just league average at best against lefties, which was not the result I was expecting to see.
I believe he's been better in recent years against lefties, maybe starting last year. But yeah, he was a guy that I always wondered why his numbers weren't good against lefties compared to righty. It doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, and it was odd. But he did get that home run. I believe he was my home run call of the day against Kershaw. When he was back in LA.
Yeah, the revenge. I remember I was on the show with you, I think.
Yes. I have not gotten a home run for a couple days, Jake.
You're due.
I'm trying to be a gentleman and let you catch back up. Yes. Dig.
Yeah, I'm struggling this year.
You guys were just killing it last year. I mean, it seemed like between the three of you, at least one of you was getting a home run call right every day.
Yeah.
We'll see. When the summer comes around and it's warmer, we'll definitely get some more here. Anything else you want to mention from our game here before we move along?
I think I'm good on this one. Yeah.
All right, now we are down to our last two 4 o'clock games. Here's where some pitching conversation is really going to start. Let's go with John Means and Adam Plutko, who is starting for Cleveland. Now, the nice thing about Plutko, he's going against the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Orioles have been better. They're not all entirely in a slump, but we still do want to pick on them. Chris Davis has been good. Over his last 30 days, he has over a 200 isolated power against righties. He still can't hit lefties. If lefties were water and he was in a boat and he fell out, he'd still be dry. So no lefties for Chris Davis there, but we do like him against righties. What do you want to do with Plutko here at 6,800? Baltimore has a 4.4 implied run total, one of the lower ones on this slate. It's going to be 70 at first pitch here in Cleveland.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at Plutko's ownership just yet, but if he's going to be 12%, like that would be something I'm really interested in playing. $6,800 righty going up against Baltimore at home as a pretty decent favorite, minus 141 right now. I think that he's a guy that I would get to a lot. I don't think he's going to stick at 12% ownership. I think as the day goes on, people are going to be more and more interested in playing Plutko because there's not a lot of great options on this slate. So I'm trying to pull up his pitch count. That was the one thing I was maybe worried about as to why he's not getting a ton of ownership. So looking at minor league stats so far this season. Where are we at here? 2019. He has, so he has 2 starts, or no, 1 start. That was actually, 6 days ago. He threw 67 pitches. So that's, I don't know. I mean, maybe you give him 80, 85 at most, but that's probably enough for 6,800 against Baltimore for him to still be in play. So I'm hoping he sticks down in this 12 to 15% range on DraftKings. If so, I would play a bunch of him. If he starts creeping up 20, 25, 30%, which I think he might be time for me to go elsewhere. So it's just going to depend on ownership for him.
Yeah, and this is entirely a price and an ownership play on the 2 pitcher sites. Do not go anywhere near him if you don't have to. Do you want to call out against lefties? His last 160 faced at the major league level, he's allowing a 430 WOBA. And guess what his ISO is if you haven't looked?
ISO against lefties. What, like 200?
Go higher.
300?
Higher.
No, 350?
348, Jake. 348. 150 at bats is not really a small sample size per se. That's the beginning of a trend, I think. Against righties, it's 245. So a lot of power given up there. But the 55% fly ball rate, no bueno.
So who are you looking at here for Orioles?
I would think, Chris Davis, because Pluko strikes out just 18% of the batters he faces, 13% of lefties, so that would bode well. I think Trey Mancini is probably their best player, but I would also be okay with I always want to say Dennis Smith Jr. It's not Dwight Smith Jr. We're not playing basketball anymore, Emac. And then I'm not really a Jose VR fan. So I don't know. The tough thing about Wilkerson is on FanDuel, he's outfield, but on DK, he's second base. It's 3,800, but it's not a bad spot for him either. He is not, doesn't have a long track record, but he does have extra base hits in 2 of his last 3 games, or I should say in his last 2 starts. He's got a home run and a double, so that's good to see. He'd even though you're giving up one of your outfield spots, I'd probably go with him at 2,300 there on FanDuel. But mostly the top of the order for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if he does start creeping up, I'm surely going to get to some Orioles here. Maybe good Chris Davis at 3,500. I don't know if you saw that yesterday on the strategy show, where Adam and Josh went back and forth about whether or not Chris Davis had been good this year. But yeah, 3,500 for a guy that Plutko, who has huge issues against lefties. I'll take some Chris Davis. I don't think he's been that bad.
All right. On the other side here, we have John Means. Now, Means, lefty, which is nice. Been great against his fellow lefties. Hard to tell what he's going to do against righties, especially as they get more of a book on him pitching at the major league level. He is another guy that we're going to have to give some consideration to at 7,500 going against Cleveland. Now, this is one where I think you want to play both sides of it. It's a 5.2 implied run total. Baltimore does have one of the worst bullpens. I think the Nationals, after last night's game, officially have the worst bullpen. But Baltimore, no great shakes there either. So some of those runs will be attributed to them being a poor bullpen here. But what do you think about Means? We know he relies heavily on his changeup. Is that gonna start to catch up to him in not a good way, I guess, because his Sierra and his xFIP and all of his advanced metrics say he should be much worse than his sterling sub-3 ERA this season.
Yeah, not much interest in Means here for me. Much more looking at the Cleveland bats. I've been hot and cold with Means. I mean, there's some things to like. His chase rate is okay. It's around average. Swinging strikes is getting 12.5%. That's a pretty solid rate, but I just don't see where the strikeouts are going to come from for Means to warrant the $7,500 price tag on this slate. So there's a couple guys in the next game in his price range within 1,000 each way that I would rather go to. So I just don't see it for Means. I got about 2% of him on my crunch. So he's probably going to get filtered out, that 2% out of 300 lineups. So No means for me. What about you?
Um, Probably not. Outside of 5 to 10%, just because I'm going to be making so many lineups. I'm just looking at his pitch mix for his game log. Now he was up. Let's see, in his first few starts, about 40% on that changeup. His last start was 20%, 26, 27, 29, 34. So it's going down. It's going down because he's throwing a slider more. His last two starts, he's throwing the slider 3 times as much as he has for most of the season. He's at about 22% there. So perhaps he's going to that as pitchers are starting to wait on that changeup somewhat. He's still right around 55% with his four-seam fastball. So not much of a curveball, which is kind of surprising. But like literally, he throws the curve like 3 times a game, 4 times a game.
Yeah,
Not
it's not the spot for him, I don't think.
all right. Hitters for the Cleveland
I guess,
squad.
yeah, I mean, I got to 5% Cleveland stacks when I filtered down my 150, so I'd probably end up under the field on them, it's looking like. But Lindor and Ramirez, I love. I don't like that they're hitting so far apart from each other because I love them as a two-man when they're hitting like first and third or something like that, like they have been the last couple of years. So those are going to be the two main guys I target. I'll probably get to some Roberto Perez at a catcher position that, per usual, is not great on this early slate. So no Gary Sanchez as he's on the very early on DK and FanDuel. So probably we'll get to some Roberto Perez at 3,700.
I didn't hear Jordan Luplow
Let's see where I got the Luplow.
because wait for it, when he hits home runs, he hits them in pairs, Jake.
Is that right?
Both his games where he's hit home runs this season, he's had 2 home runs. All 4 on the year came in 2 games. So there we go. Hashtag analysis.
Yeah. No kidding.
Let's see here. Turn my mic up.
You sound fine to me.
Yeah, I think I may have been talking away from the mic. Trust me when I say I have the mic away from me for a reason, because I can tend to get a little animated, as Jake can attest to. So there we are. All right. I think that covers this game. Our final game. Well, we just got the Miami lineup in. How fortuitous, because we are going to be talking about the New York Mets and the Miami Marlins. Here is some intriguing pitching. 2 of the lower totals on the slate. 3.7 implied run total here for the Marlins. They are going against lefty Steven Matz. On the other side, we have a 3.9 implied run total for the Mets going against Pablo Lopez. I'm intrigued by both pitchers. Great pitching environment. We don't have fierce offenses. Well, offense, because no offense, Miami. Really, literally, no offense. No offense, I guess. But I want both these pitchers. Can you poke some holes in these guys?
Kind of hard for me to. They project out both very well at their price points for me. So they're actually my 3rd and 4th highest exposure pitchers right now, and I don't see a lot changing. So whenever you're going up against the Marlins, I mean, yeah, they got to DeGrom last night, whatever. They see DeGrom, like 4 or 5 times a year. So they're going to have probably a start every year where they get to him just because they're seeing a pitcher so much. A ton of righties in the lineup against Matt's, actually all righties except for pitcher Pablo Lopez. That's not that much of a concern for me. I'm playing quite a bit of Steven Matz here. So I don't know where you're at, but yeah, he's not really my guy, but he just projects out so well. And any pitcher does against Miami. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked. Like if you tell me you're not getting to him, I wouldn't be upset about that. He's going to be heavily owned as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. So I ran uncapped 100 and using 4 stacks here on DK. I got 90% Pablo Lopez, 90% Aaron Nola. Matz isn't coming in just because I'll change some things around a little bit here. But for me, I suspect Nola, Lopez, and Matz are going to be my top 3 pitchers in this robust 6-game 4:00 slate.
Sure.
The main thinking is, well, it's the Marlins, and that does takes a lot of the pressure off things. Now, Matz, I want to see where, because I know he's coming off the injured list. So he last pitched on May 4th. So that has been 2 weeks. He had a strained forearm. Let's see this, borrowing from the DK player blurb. It says he came through a 45 pitch bullpen session with no issues on Wednesday, and is expected to start and should pick up where he left off over his last 3 starts. So looking at his starts this season, he has 4 of his 7 starts. He has gone 100 pitches or more. One of those that he didn't was 99. So I don't want to guarantee 100 pitches for anybody coming off the DL, especially with the forearm strain. But I would like to think 80 to 85 is very realistic. I don't think he'll go over 90, but on a price per pitch in this matchup against the Marlins, I'm willing to pay his current price tag for 80 to 85 pitches. And again, there's no pitching limit. This is just me kind of guessing what the outcome would be in this one, or the amount of pitches he'll get.
Right. I think 80 to 85 against Miami. Matz is not really a guy you rely on to go super deep. Anyways, you're looking for a K per inning. You're looking for 5 to 6 innings. And he's quite a bit cheaper than a guy like Buehler, who I don't really love. So just by default, I'm getting to a little bit of Matz, just saving that extra money. And yeah, you're capping your upside a bit with Matz, but the Marlins are just so bad that it's hard for me not to get him, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, look at. Let me hit refresh here, because like John Birdie, who Garrett Cooper. Wait, any relation to Gary Cooper? You guys probably don't.
It's bad, yeah.
Starlin Castro, your cleanup hitter. Jorge Alfaro, okay, solid catcher, batting 5th. Martin Prado. If Martin Prado is in the mix, does Martin Prado ever hit the ball in the air?
No.
Out of the infield? No. They're worm burners. They're constant worm burners. And I was a fan of Martin Prado for such a long time. An unhealthy fan, because I would play him all the time until you watch him. And then you just realize he's never going to hit the ball in the air, or so it seems. So I don't know who's going to get to Matz. Somebody will. Probably Anderson would be the guy. But as we saw last night, and as you mentioned, stuff happens in baseball. There are no guarantees. They roughed up our buddy DeGrom. Now, if DeGrom hadn't cut his hair, I think he would have had a better start. But
right, exactly.
There is that. With regards to Lopez, I mean, the Mets are a much better offense. I mean, it's amazing having Robbie Cano, Pete Alonso, J.D. Davis, and Wilson Ramos. I mean, they basically turned over the core of their lineup. What happened to Conforto? Is he out?
Yeah, I think so.
Like out, like DL out, or injured list out?
I think, yeah. Why? I mean, why else wouldn't he be in the lineup? I can't remember. I did see something about him the other day, though.
I'm just looking because let's see, concussion. There we go. All right. So he's on the 7-day DL. They just, let's see, when do they? He's not eligible to come off yet. So that's where he is. But looking at these guys, I mean, if I was going with anybody, it would probably be Cano and Alonso. I don't hate Nimmo, but I'm suspecting we're going to want to have some leverage stacks against Pablo Lopez for our sanity tonight. Jake, who do you think you would like from the Metropolitans?
I mean, you feel free to stack them up. I'm getting to some Met stacks, but I'm getting to quite a bit more of Pablo Lopez. So they're good leverage. So Lopez just got roughed up by the Mets actually last week. He gave up 10 earned. Yeah, it was just a god awful start for him on the road. Pitching in Miami though, I am gonna get to quite a bit of him. I've got him over Plutko as far as exposure, just raw points as well. There's not really one guy that sticks out to me for the Mets. It would probably be a stack, because if they do get Lopez out, you get the Miami bullpen afterwards, which we would like to target. So, yeah, it's more of a stack or kind of stay away, because I'm playing so much Lopez, almost 50% for me right now.
Wow. That's always scary. Right?
Yeah. Especially
I felt confident yesterday with 60% DeGrom. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, you feel much better about 60% DeGrom than even like 30% Pablo Lopez. But I think Lopez is a fine player. I believe he's another one like Trevor Richards with the changeup, so he doesn't have as many issues against lefties as you would think for a right-handed pitcher because he's got a solid changeup.
Yeah, and then they've got Smith, the lefty with phenomenal strikeout stuff. I mean, for being the Marlins and for having restocked basically 2/3 of the teams in the league with their starting lineup, they have a decent pitchers.
They do. They've got a solid staff that if these guys keep improving, like now you need hitters though. You need to pair them with quality hitters.
Oh, sorry, Marlins. Sorry.
It's so sad.
All right, we've got our 7 o'clock slate here. We have, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 o'clock games. We've got, let's start out here. Boston. We've got Houston. We've got Corbin Martin. Looked good in his short time here in the majors, but he is going against Boston. Never an easy task for anybody. 5.2 implied run total for Boston, who, by the way, are underdogs at home. That's not really because they're facing Corbin Martin. It is more because, one, they're facing the Astros bats, and two, Hector Velasquez is going to be their pitcher. I love the Houston bats. I think we love them every day, no matter what, Jake. But let's start off with Corbin Martin here as one of our potential pitchers. Do you want to roll the dice with him? Do you think any strikeout upside is going to be there for him against Boston?
Not really against the Red Sox. I don't see myself getting to a lot of them. I haven't run crunches yet, but even at 7,200, and the Red Sox are just such a tough matchup for really any handed pitcher. But yeah, like looking at their K rate so far this season, their active roster just over 20% K rate. Now their WRC plus is only at 93. But similar to last year, like why wouldn't the Red Sox be able to smash lefties? I mean, Bogarts, JD, Betts, those guys can all hit lefties really well. Michael Chavis has been crushing this year so far. Yeah, I don't see myself needing to get to Corbin Martin here. I'll probably punt or get to some of these mid-tier pitchers instead. What about you?
It's all about the hitters here. Let me see. If I remember correctly, Houston did make the short list on my article. Oh, wait, they're my featured play. They're the cover boys. So Houston going against right-hander Hector Velasquez here. I'll drop the link in chat. This is for the Spotlights Hitters and Pitchers article. It is free. I'll run that out every day. Try to give you at least one team on each of the slates that we can target. I generally try not to go with the overly obvious ones, but sometimes you just have to in these situations. Try to also focus on, solid 2 or 3 man groupings with some of the teams to provide you guys a little bit of a difference maker. But when you've got a team like the Astros in this particular situation, it's hard to shy away from them. You've got, let's see, Velasquez is continuing to stretch out with his new responsibilities as a starter. I'm guessing we're going to see him around 70, 75 pitches. While he's been okay against righties, still not great. The best play, I think, is Michael Brantley. He is potentially my home run call of the night. You guys will have to tune into the night show to find out if he sticks. But you've also got Bregman, Springer, and Correa. Love those guys. I'm in on the Astros.
Yep. I like the Astros as well. Not worried about Velasquez. I mean, just huge implied total here as well in Fenway. Super expensive price tag. So I wonder once I start crunching how much I'm actually going to get to them. I love the idea of getting to them a ton, but 59, 56, 53, and 5,400 for their top 4 hitters is going to be pretty restrictive. So if we can find some of these guys that we'd like to get to in this low tier, in mid and low tier, I'd love to get in the Astros. It's just a matter of how much can I actually fit of them.
I was hoping, and I don't see him in the projected lineup, but that's kind of said that in the article as well. I said these guys aren't going to be had at a discount because they're all potential all-stars. But Chirinos and Marisnik, if they make the lineup, I think those guys are some discounted options. Chirinos has some nice power. Marisnik always a pinch hit risk whenever he's in, but he was one of the guys I thought was someone I would consider for this one. On the other side, I think we're good with the top 6 or 7 here with the Red Sox. going against Corbin Martin, who, he's got a lot to learn about pitching still. And this is going to be Fenway Park is no easy spot for these youngsters to come in and try to make a name for themselves here. So no great shakes. We all know who the Red Sox are. Anything else from this one?
No, I think we're good.
All right, the next game, your team versus my team. The Chicago Cubs, the Washington Nationals, John Lester, Steven Strasburg. I'm always terrified of rolling out Steven Strasburg, but Greek Ink has said he is going to the Nationals game tonight, and he wants to get a couple hitters from this game, preferably from the Nats, that he can choose on FanDuel and root for. I would say Anthony Rendon. Trey Turner is back. Those would be my starting points. But don't shy away from Juan Soto, who is fine in lefty-lefty matchups. And this is not John Lester anymore. It's still solid John Lester, and I wouldn't mind him being on my team as my number 2 starter. But it's not no-hitter John Lester.
Yeah, I think the Nats are actually probably one of my favorite stacks on the main slate. I have been a noted Lester hater. He's just not that good versus righties. He's very good against lefties. So maybe if you wanted to avoid Eaton a bit, I wouldn't avoid Soto really ever. But yeah, like looking at these prices for the Nats plus the speed aspect versus Lester for guys like Eaton, Turner, I believe Rendon can swipe bags as well. I don't know how aggressive he's been this year. He's just got one so far this year, but you know what Turner can do. And 4,700 for Turner, I think, is kind of a ridiculous price against Lester just for stolen base upside alone. So that being said, I think steals are generally undervalued in DFS, especially for stacking. So I'll be playing a ton of Nats. And then I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with Strasburg. I haven't looked at his ownership specifically. I'm going to do that right now. Yeah, okay, so he's the highest owned on the slate. And I think he's going to be the highest owned on the slate just because of lack of options. So when that happens, I'm usually looking for reasons to get off of him. And that's why I didn't write him up. I wrote up Barrios instead on the Spotlight Pitchers. You guys can check that out if you'd like. I think they're going to project out similarly, and I'll just take the guy in the lower owned spot. I mean, we saw what the Cubs could do last night. It's not like they're just a cake matchup by any means. So while I'm not crazy about the Cubs, I'm almost certainly going to end up underweight on Strasburg.
All right, I'm calling it up here. I'm going to run a little crunch, put in 100. Let's see what happens. I want to see where Strauss is coming in. Oh, it looks like it's going to be Strauss and Bumgarner as my top 2 coming in uncapped here. Strasburg's going to be on 80% of my teams. That's not where it's going to end up. This is just, I like to see where things are coming out. So it looks like Margevicius and Godley are the other 2 pitchers coming in. Now, I normally like to play 8 pitchers on a slate this size, 3 of them with some solid ownership, as they say. I think as terrified as I am of Strasburg, I think I will be looking to him along with the masses tonight. If you wanted to go against Strauss, it's got to be. I think it's got to be the top 3 guys. I love that Schwarber's leading off. I also love that Schwarber is leading off on DK at 3,100, or at least he did last night. That's what the projected lineup show again tonight. Now Strasburg, I hate to say splits neutral, but it's not. He's not like Scherzer, where you're like, okay, if I get the best lefty power hitter on the opposite team, there's going to be a chance I can luck into the home run that he's inevitably going to give up. Strasburg, not quite the same. He generally doesn't allow a ton of power. He's got 150 ISO to lefties, 160 to righties. That's over his last 400 hitters from each side of the plate. He's got a 300 WOBA, which is pretty good. He just, for me, it always seems that he pitches himself into jams and then just can't get out of them. The other hard part is the bullpen of the Nats. So even if he's coming with the lead when he leaves the game, Jake, I don't know that they're going to keep it for him. That makes it a little tough to like him. Now, it's very, very difficult to project wins for anybody, but kind of want the win points for this price tag.
For sure. Yeah, and it's not like he's a huge favorite at all. So I I don't know. I mean, he's probably going to project out as the highest raw point pitcher, but I don't know if that's saying a ton on this slate. Like this slate is really, really lacking quality options even more than the early slate.
Yes, X Cosset says it succinctly in the YouTube chat. Pitching is straight up terrible for the main slate.
Yep.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep. It's bad.
All right, we've got several more games, so let's see what we can unearth here. We've got the Milwaukee Brewers in Atlanta. Kevin Gausman, Chase Anderson scoring off against each other. Chase Anderson kind of in that Zach Davies mold. I never know what to do with him, but I really don't want to take him against Atlanta. It's going to be 84 at first pitch. Humidity is reasonable. We're not quite at the Atlanta wandering, spontaneous pop-up thunder showers stage of the summer yet, but that's about 5 weeks away. In the meantime, Gausman kind of intriguing. I really don't want to take him against the Brewers, whose lineup is absolutely scary, especially when they're healthy. With Yelich, Braun, Moustakas, Grandal, one of the better catchers, hitting catchers in the game. He's slumping, but when he connects, the ball goes a long, long way. That would be Jesus Aguilar. Where do you want to start with this game? Because we're going to have to take some players. Is it Gausman? Is it the hitters? It's not Chase Anderson, is it?
No. It's ugly on both sides for me. Like, kind of both of these pitchers are going to be mostly priced out of play for me. Gausman, not a high upside arm as much as I would like him to be. I don't know that there's strikeout upside, I guess, for the Brewers. But like I said, I don't think Gausman's the guy to really take advantage of that. And he does have some issues with power. And there's just so many good hitters for the Brewers. So while I can't really cross off either of these two guys just yet, I mean, this far out in the slate, because who knows where it's going to end up with all these bad pitching options. I think Gausman would be the guy I would get to more than Anderson, just because of the Braves matchup. I just hate that basically always. And I think Gausman's a better pitcher than Anderson. He's a favorite, so he'd be a guy maybe I get to like 5 or 10% or something of. But yeah, it's pretty ugly. I mostly just want bats on both sides. Yelich, you mentioned Aguilar, Grandal, I think is one of the top catcher plays on the slate. And then anytime Freeman's against a righty that's not elite, I'm playing him for 5K. So mostly bats here. Can you sway me either of these pitchers?
No, but just on the talent level, I will have a smattering of Gausman. Unlikely that I get Anderson. Not at $8,000. Just not where I want to go. But it's tough here because we'll talk about Griffin Canning. We're gonna have to talk about Mad Bum. We've got Barrios, so we still have some options we haven't gotten to yet that we can look to outside of Strasburg tonight. But I don't think it's going to be these guys. It's kind of an intriguing one. I mean, it's nearly a 10-run total between these two squads here. So, that makes you a little more nervous about the pitchers. But I still think maybe some Kevin Gausman. But he's probably going to be my fourth or probably my fifth pitcher, and 10% maybe.
So, yeah, I can see right now. I mean, Gausman, he's going to project really low. Like as much as I don't like this guy, Marge Vicious, that we'll talk about, I think probably next.
Let's transition there right now, Jake.
Yeah, I guess I'd rather just save the $1,400 and kind of close my eyes.
Well, the Pirates, as you alluded to, the Pirates not great against lefties, which was a bit of a surprise to me, and I very much enjoyed Mr. Lucchese's performance last night. But currently, they have the 9th highest strikeout rate against lefties at 25% with their active roster. They also have a woeful WRC plus that is 74 against lefties, which means they create runs 26% less than the average team. Not than the best team, than just the average team. Only team worse than them against lefties is the Giants. Heck, even the Marlins are a tick above them. So, gotta look to Margevicius. I believe it was last weekend I was targeting against him with some righties for some home run upside, but yeah, I think DFS makes for strange bedfellows, Jake. At 6,900, we got to start two pitchers here on DK and on Yahoo. Markovich is going to be earmarked for one of those slots, I am guessing. Does not feel good, though. Does not feel good. If you were going to leverage against him, who would you look to here?
Once again, I think I talked about this yesterday. Man, Pirates have just played so many lefties as of late. Josh Bell would probably be my favorite guy, and then Cervelli.
5,600 on DK, 5,600.
Yeah, so maybe you go with a 2-man and even it out a little bit with Cervelli at 2,800. I think Cervelli's probably the most obvious spot. You don't have to allocate a ton of salary to him. He hits lefties very well, and you're getting leverage off of a chalky cheap pitcher. Marte's price has come down a little bit. Maybe put him in the mix. I mean, there's some righties here with a little bit of power. Brian Reynolds. I'd probably just stack if I'm going against Marjovic. But like you mentioned, the Pirates have just been so bad. We've been talking about this for the better part of a week. Their numbers against lefties are really alarming, and their performance as of late hasn't really done much to change my opinion here. So Marjovic is probably going to be one of my higher exposed pitchers. Not just going to write off the Pirates. I think you should have some Pirate stacks in there. It's just too good of a leverage spot. I think it's going to end up being that way at least. The closer we get to lock, I think Marjovic's ownership is probably going to go up rather than go down. It might reach 35, 40%, somewhere in there.
All right. On Yahoo, Josh Bell is the most expensive hitter at $26.
Man.
He is tied with an Angel for most expensive hitter. Can you guess what the Angel that is?
Is it La Stella?
It is La Stella.
My goodness.
Former Chicago Cub, Tommy Stella. Did you ever think you'd see such great things from him?
No, I also don't think this is a trend for him. I'd love to see him turn into a completely different player. And he's been around forever,
literally forever. He's like the what is it? The 2010s version of Brian Terrio.
I don't even know that name. I don't think I wasn't even following baseball in that time, but I'll take your word for it. I mean, 4,700 on DK is also pretty tough to get behind for La Stella, but
just wanted to throw that out there. It's one of those oddities. Now let's get back to today's game. We have, let's see, gosh, I'm going to butcher his name. My sincere apologies to the family of the Pittsburgh youngster who is taking the mound tonight. Let's give it a swing here. Montana, I got that part right.
Okay. Very good.
The Rapiow. Now he's, let's see, it says this is courtesy of the MLB starting lineups page. They still use ERA and, this guy did X against this team last year or has done X against said team in his career. Yeah. Never change, guys. Never change. But they do have some nice tidbits here and there. So he's going to actually be the opener today. It says he is 27 years old. He is a rookie. He started a game, for the last time he started a game in his career was 2011. That is a long time ago. What do we want to do with the pod squad?
So this guy looks like he's only going to go maybe an inning or two max.
Yeah,
so
I'd say 30 pitches. However long 30 pitches last for him.
Yeah. You'd have to be really efficient to even get through 2 innings. Maybe they just pull him after 1. Do you know of any long reliever that's going or anyone we can play here for cheap that's coming in?
I don't know. We know by the afternoon.
Okay.
Let me look and see who pitched last night here. So let me go to the handy dandy bullpen page. Let's go.
If we're getting a righty, especially with any sort of K upside that could go 4 or 5 innings, that's cheap. I think they would have to be in the mix on this slate. If they're just treating it like a bullpen game and you're going to get 1 to 2 innings from 5 to 6 different guys, then it not only makes me not want to target any of those guys, but I hate targeting bullpen games in general. Franmil Reyes has just been on fire as of late. So 4,400 for him. I think that's a fine price, no matter if he's going up against a righty or lefty. Just got huge power. Your boy Hunter Renfroe at 4,500 and Manny Machado at 4,400. I'd be fine playing those guys individually. I just don't think I'm going to get to a lot of Padres stacks, especially if we don't get clarity on who's coming in afterwards.
Yeah, maybe if anybody in chat is aware, they can give us a heads up. Sometimes if they watch the game, sometimes the announcers seem to know more than what ends up on social media. Looking at their bullpen, I would guess it is probably a bullpen game. Chris Stratton went on Wednesday, but he threw 72 pitches. He would have been the guy I would have thought maybe they would put in there. So last night, Felipe Vasquez and Michael Feliz, just Vasquez pitched, and Kelly Crick. So I doubt we'll see them. But Francisco Liriano is in their bullpen, and then I suspect it'll be Clay Holmes and Hartley. Those guys haven't pitched since Monday, so it feels more like a true bullpen game today.
Yeah, yikes. So that kind of makes me not want to target a lot.
Here's one. Oh, this is a good one. Mike Bucket says it could be Brault or Kingman. Good point.
Okay.
We've seen both those guys because Kingman's not fully stretched out, so he could come in and get about 4 innings, and then we've seen Brault. So if it's Brault, we want Franmil Reyes, we want Hunter Renfroe, we want the guys who hit for power.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe you could play those two guys. I mean, Kingham and Brault. I don't know. We'll have to get back to that. We'll talk about this one later. I don't know if there's a ton to discuss right now.
Yeah, tune in at 6:00. We'll be doing the live before lock. Myself and yourself, Eric and Jake. There we are. Moving on to our last couple games here, 3 to go. The Royals, the Angels, potential pitchers here. We have Jake Junis at 6,300. That makes him intriguing. Of course, as we mentioned, he's going to have to face Tommy La Stella, who wants to do that. But with Shohei Ohtani back, this is a much, much better Angels squad. It's not Mike Trout and the wannabes. It makes it that much better. And then La Stella, I mean, Crash Davis said it best, Jake. You got to respect the streak. The streak. So Jake Junis, we're vacillating on him. Last year, he gave up a boatload of home runs the first half of the season. Kind of got those, and by a boatload, I mean 2, 3, 4 a game. It was horrible. Kind of got that stuff under control. He's hit or miss right now, which is not great. Now, this is good pitching environment here in LA. We have 62 degrees at first pitch. You'll get that vaunted marine layer, that cooling air effect that comes in and helps suppress his home runs. But the Angels still have a 5.2 implied run total. Going for the Angels, it's righty Griffin Canning, who's, I think this is his 4th start this season. The Royals, not really a team to be trifled with. They are much better than we have seen in the past. Particularly with Adalberto Mondesi, Whit Merrifield. Nicky Lopez has been called up, so he's a discount dandy that you can get 3,100 on DK at second base. He should be batting second. The Royals lead the league in stolen bases, Jake, and Jonathan Lucroy has allowed the 3rd most steals in his starts this season. And if you do a steal per start, he's one of the bottom 3 on the year. So potential upside there if he is behind the dish. What do you want to do with these pitchers?
So Canning's the guy I'm much more interested in, and he's going to be more owned. Just coming into the league and posting these ridiculous swing and miss numbers, 35% chase rate in his first few starts, nearly 18% swinging strike rate. Like, you don't often see that. Efficiency is going to be an issue with him, but he did throw 101 pitches in his last start, which was really good to see. I thought they were going to kind of baby him for a while. I think 83 and 85 or 86 pitches in his first 2. So I think the $8,500 price tag is warranted for a guy with this kind of swing and miss. Would imagine he's going to be pretty volatile early in his career. So not like he's a lock. He's not Scherzer. He's not DeGrom, as you saw. There's no one is a lock in MLB last night, but he's one of my favorite guys on this slate, if not my favorite overall point per dollar. I think even in 5 and maybe a little bit more than 5 innings, I think he's a guy who could get you 6, 7, 8 strikeouts. So he's a guy that I'm going to be playing quite a bit of. And I think some people will go to Bumgarner, and I hope so, because I'd rather pay down a little bit for Canning.
What? I wanted to see what the Royals. Why can't I see them? Hold on. All right, so they're 19th,
Yeah, they're middle.
22% against righties, which for them is light years worse than what we got used to seeing. But changed a lot of guys. No more, obviously, no more Hosmore, no more Moustakis, etc. But um, that's a little higher than I would have expected. So, yep, Canning does seem interesting at least in this one. What about your namesake, Jake Junis?
If it was a better strikeout matchup, I would probably take a shot on Junis here. But like, how many strikeouts can you actually project him for against the Angels? They just don't strike out. They are dead last in the league versus righties this year, and by a huge margin. They strike out 4.3% less than any other team versus righties so far this season, under 14%. I mean, just outrageous.
And
So
wait for it, 3.3% less than any other team against lefties.
yeah,
They
so
have the double double, Jake. They literally strike out the least of
yeah, they're
everybody.
the Royals from a few years ago, where it's like, yeah, they're probably not a great team, but you have two hitters, maybe three if you consider Listella, that you're really worried about. Trout, Ohtani, I'm talking about, kind of joking about Listella, but Ohtani, arguably the best point per dollar hitter on the slate at 4,400.
Yeah.
His price tag just refuses to come up for whatever reason on DraftKings. So it's going to be a lot of Trout, a lot of Ohtani for me. And I don't see myself getting to Junis. I like Margevicius, even though he's chalky. I can't really find a reason to get over to Junis, even as a just strict pivot at no ownership.
No, the only thing I got for Junis is it's a 3 game late slate. You've got 6 pitchers. We're gonna have to play 2 of them. So
Sure. There you go. Yeah.
oh, all right. Let's see if we're targeting anybody for the Angels, as you mentioned. The top Trout, Ohtani are light years ahead of everybody else. Uh, La Stella, you may have to swallow hard, but that you know what, he's on a heater. You're paying absolutely top dollar, literally top dollar on Yahoo for him. Let's see, 2 games to go. A couple other pitching options still to come here. You've got Madsen Bumgarner going against the Diamondbacks there in Chase Field. Diamondbacks 4.2 implied run total. They have Zach Godley on the mound. He is got, let's see, 6,700 there on DK. Now, the interesting thing with Godley is he has a nice matchup against San Francisco. Now, San Francisco does perform better on the road, but these are still a bunch of guys that you're not going to be afraid of outside of maybe Brandon Belt. Brandon Crawford has about 100 isolated power at this point. Kevin PR, not great. Panic, no need to panic. Buster Posey, these guys are just annoying as hell, but it's hard to see them doing damage unless they form a conga line around the base paths, because I don't see him getting to Godley for power.
Yeah.
That's my rousing endorsement of Godley.
So the thing with Godley is there's a question as to how deep he's going to go. He hasn't been starting as of late, or I guess he did like open one game recently, but his last 4 appearances, so his 4 appearances in May, 36, 40, 18, and 56 pitches. So I don't know, maybe you give him like 70, 75 at most, because he threw 56 a couple, 12 days ago. So that would be like, I think on the generous side. He still projects out okay, in spite of that though. And the Giants with a 90 WRC plus, they lack a ton of power. The weather is a little bit worrisome, but low implied total against Godley. You're hoping he can get to 5. If he can get to 5, you might be okay at 6,700. Is he getting steam? Yeah, man, he's getting pretty heavily owned. 21% right now on the main slate for DraftKings. So he's a whatever play. I mean, he's a guy who I wish was much better. He's a guy I loved a couple years ago, and I thought he was going to turn into closer to an ace than what he is now. But quite the fall from grace for Godley these last couple years.
Fall from grace. Godley. I see what you did there.
Oh, I didn't even try to do that. But
yeah, all I remember was it last year? It may have been 2 years ago, where he had back-to-back starts against the craptastic San Diego Padres. He was on the late slate. He was reasonably priced, and he had just got his ass handed to him. One in San Diego and one at home. And it was with the roof closed too. The roof will be open today. It'll be closed tomorrow on Sunday. But yeah, flash in the pan, I guess, with Mr. Godley. How are you feeling about Mad Bum here?
He's a guy I
He is a
don't
guy.
I haven't liked him the last few years. I just think he's generally overrated, but his swinging strike rate has gone way up this season. His chase rate is also up to 34%. So he's been a much better pitcher, a pitcher that I like to target or like to play a lot more. And the results have also been fine for him. So I don't have an issue with him. I just would rather pay down for $1,200 for Canning and get up to another Trout or get up to a Houston bat or two, and get to some of these expensive stacks. So it's not really, I don't hate Bumgarner here at all. I just think for similar ownership, I'd rather pay down a little bit to a guy that I'm pretty excited about in Canning.
Yeah, I'd feel a little bit better if this matchup was in San Francisco on that one. But at 9,700, I'm gonna find that extra $600 and get the Jose Berrios. That's right, or is it Berrios? You listen to the Minnesota Twins, Jake. How do we pronounce
Berrios?
Berrios.
Yeah.
Against the Mariners. Did you know the Mariners lead the league in runs scored, Jake?
Not surprising. They started off red hot.
Did you also know they have a negative run differential?
That's wild. I did not know that.
So, yes, doing the math, they also lead the league in runs allowed. That is a rare double. Unless you're the Rockies of the 1990s, when everything was crazy. Yeah. There were no humidor and lots of training regimens that they aren't doing quite as much as they are now, or back then they do now. I think if you're picking between Strauss and Berrios, who do you want here? I think that's the fair call. You got Berrios on the road, facing a DH. You've got Strasburg going against a former World Series champion. You've got Berrios going against one of the two teams in all of Major League Baseball that never made the World Series. Not that this has anything to do with the matchup tonight, but yikes. I think I want some Jose Berrios in my life.
Yeah, I'm going to get to Berrios a lot. I mean, dangerous matchup. The Mariners, obviously, as you mentioned, they can score a ton of runs. They have quite a bit of power. And then also not in Berrios' favor. The home road splits have been concerning for him for his career. And I'm sure we've talked about it a bunch of times when we've been on. So, those are kind of notches against Berrios, but he has had fine starts on the road. Just looking at the results, like, it doesn't make sense why he wouldn't be good elsewhere, especially in a park like Seattle that is more of a pitcher's park, whereas Target Field is, a little above average for hitters actually and below average for pitchers. So it's more of an ownership pivot. I just don't think Berrios gets outscored by Strasburg 2-1 here, and that's what the ownership is pointing you towards. So similar price point to Strasburg. I think they're pretty equally tough matchups. Strikeout wise and power wise and stuff like that for Berrios and Strasburg. So I'll just take the guy that I think is lower owned. I think Berrios is ultra talented. It's hard to argue that he's not. So he's kind of the guy I'm going to take a little bit of a stand on.
And suddenly we realize why Nick Margevicius is going to be prominently involved in our lives on Saturday night. On the other side here, we have Wade LeBlanc, the Twins, one of the best offenses in the league, quietly doing so. But Jonathan Scope, 3,700, batting second. CJ Crone, as they like to say, the Crone Zone there. He is always good for a home run. He's one of my potential home run guys, Jake. Not to tip my hand too much here because we'll be doing that contest a little bit later. Rosario does fine against lefties. Marwin Gonzalez. Okay, that's enough about Marwin Gonzalez. Other than he actually literally qualifies for every position on the season.
Yeah. He's been playing everywhere.
Miguel Sano's back. Is that good or bad? That's
he's been back the last couple of games. Yep.
Buxton or Sano? I'm going to set the under at 6.5 strikeouts, even against Wade LeBlanc. What do you got?
Yeah.
That's about right. It feels about right. Okay, 5.5 is a fair number. But
man, if either one of those guys could even hit, close to what they're expected to based on how they were brought up as prospects, like this Twins lineup would be even scarier, 1-9. So, if those are your 8 and 9 hitters, I think you're doing okay for the Twins. So, yeah, they're going to strike out quite a bit. But even Buxton had a home run the other day, and Sano, he's going to swing and miss a lot, but he has power. So, yeah, you're not playing LeBlanc here, are you?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. The Twins, there's not a ton of strikeout upside, even despite those two guys we talked about. Astudillo likely in the lineup. You've got Crone, who hits lefties really well. Polanco has been one of the better players in the league. If you just go by, it's either WRC plus or WAR. He's like top 3 right now behind Bellinger and Trout, I believe. So just a really deep lineup that I hate targeting for the Twins. And then LeBlanc, it's not like you're getting a discount on him either, 7,500. So I'm much more on Twins bats here. I think I've been on them like every slate the last 2 weeks, and they haven't really let me down. So I'm going right back at him against LeBlanc here.
Yeah, and why I so quickly dismissed LeBlanc. There's literally no upside for him. He is a pitcher. He's about league average strikeouts. He doesn't allow a ton of power per se. Let me rephrase that. He doesn't end up with a lot of base runners, but the problem is if he gives up a home run and somebody's on, that's all she wrote for him, because he tends to self implode. He has a pretty high fly ball rate. He lucks out a lot, being in. Oh, good God! He's pitched in Petco? Didn't he do a turn at PNC Park? Now he's in.
He's been everywhere. It seems like.
I mean, he's been pitching in some good parks throughout his career, which dramatically help him. Let me see. Yes. He got Miami for a couple starts there way back in the day. Houston. I don't remember him with the Angels. He played one game for 2014. He played for the Angels and the Yankees. I don't remember him with the.
I don't remember him on half those teams, honestly.
Oh, here's the Baseball Reference is mucked up. He had 10 appearances for him. The Yankees, I remember him, and he barely played for the Yankees, which is odd. I guess you just always. But yeah, Pittsburgh and Seattle. This is his second turn with Seattle. They brought him back as one, he's not overly expensive, and two, the park suits him, and he eats innings. But there's just no DFS upside. All right. Any final thoughts here, Jake?
No, I think we covered it.
Well, I hope so. We've been on the air for like an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Jeez, we're taking a page out of Josh's book.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure people are sick of us, but we've got more at 6 Eastern tonight, live before lock. We'll talk everything ownership and maybe tilt our early slate lineups on the show.
Absolutely. That sounds like a plan. So with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Jake on Twitter at Jake Hari. You can find me at EMACDFS. It is, of course, Osmo_COM. And check us out. Use the promo code live before lock. Get 50% off any 1 month package. If you want to jump in, we've got weekly packages as well. Again, we got NASCAR tonight, and I heard from Phil, our NASCAR rider. He's actually doing an early preview look for, I believe, the Coca-Cola 600 next week or whatever, their big Saturday night race for the 3-day weekend. He's putting that content up early, so if you grab that weekly package, you're going to get everything. Plus, we have nice golf next weekend as well, even though it's not one of the majors. There's still some good golf contests, and we do have about two premium articles going up a day with golf, even during the weekend, because they're doing showdown stuff. You can get Ben and Jason there in Slack chat giving you some good advice. You've got Jake with the NHL projections, NHL advice there in Slack chat, because I've noticed most of our competitors, aka none of them really, are doing playoff content for hockey at all, and you've been chugging along. So hat tip to you there, Jake. Hat tip to you.
Yeah, I'm playing, so you guys should get the projections too.
Absolutely.
Can't take them away from you now.
Absolutely. All right, with that, gamers, good luck.